Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined by Craig Burley and Shaka here. Islam Eze's proposed move to Arsenal. Still very much the big headline around the Premier League at the moment. Of course, this is a deal that Tottenham thought they had done. However, Arsenal, in the last 24 hours, have come in and hijacked it, and it looks like the English international will be heading to the Emirates. For more on this, James Ollie joins us. James, obviously, we thought that Eze might play today. There were suggestions, of course, Crystal Palace in this conference playoff game, that a deal was done between Spurs and Palace that he would play in this match. Obviously, that didn't happen today.
No, it didn't. It's been quite a dramatic day or so. I think Spurs had made all the running on this right until yesterday afternoon, really, when Arsenal decided to make their move for Eze. And the thing is, they kind of knew, they always had up their sleeve the fact that he is a boyhood Arsenal fan, that he always had this dream to one day play for Arsenal. Spurs, of course, had got to the point where they'd agreed a fee with Palace. They'd agreed with Eze that he would come. Eze was quite happy to come, despite the fact that he was a boyhood Arsenal fan. He felt as though that was the big move that was available to him. But then a combination of things, really sort of the final sort of piece of the jigsaw really being the injury to Kai Havertz. We don't know exactly how bad that is, but it's bad enough for Arsenal to reassess their position in the market, but that was enough to be the catalyst for them to go and say to Palace, right, what have Spurs negotiated? We'll match that, and we know the player wants to come to us. So once they made the decision to go for it, it was quite quick, and it moved, it moved very, very fast.
This begs the question, though, James, why didn't Arsenal just get this done earlier on in the window? If they had the funds there, they knew that Eze could be available, we know what he would bring to the table, why has it taken them this long? Why has it taken it to this point?
OK, so there's a couple of reasons for that. Firstly, there was a £68 million release clause in Eze's contract that expired earlier this month, and nobody, Arsenal and Spurs included, felt he was quite worth that. So they thought, well, let's let that expire and then see where we are later in the window. The second point was that their interest was partly contingent on the fear that Ethan Nwaneri would not sign a new contract, and they felt that if he was going to run his deal down, or that they would be in a position where they'd have to sell him this summer, then that would free up the space in the squad for Eze. And then the third, and arguably the most important factor, is the injury to Kai Havertz, because of course, although Eze's not a number 9, strictly speaking, well, he isn't at all really, he can play out on the left or play as a number 10, they felt as though they were really short last season in those attacking areas, and that was the reason they feel internally why they didn't win the league. They suffered too many injuries in that position. In those positions, they got injured. They felt, well, is this going to be history repeating itself? Shall we actually go for Eze rather than wait until we've made some money from player income, from player sales, and get that money back, get some money off the wage bill, and then go for him later in the window? And really, circumstances dictated that it was now or never, and they decided to pull the trigger and go for it.
OK, here we go. Let's try it. Craig.
Day 2.
What a coup for Arsenal.
Yeah, I think this is a brilliant move for both. As James said, Tottenham was a destination because he felt there wasn't another big move. But this is a fit for me because he improves Arsenal. I think he plays. He can play in 2 or 3 different positions. He's a quality footballer. I really like him. You've only got to watch Crystal Palace in England in the last couple of years to see that. He is different to what they've got in the wider areas. Martinelli's all about pace. And if Eze plays on the left, he's more of a guy that drifts around a little bit. As James said, he can play in that number 10 role as well. His end product is very good. He's great on the ball, really pinned him in. And the way that he just takes the ball in and sort of nonchalantly just a little nutmeg or whatever, I just think he's a terrific player. I think he gives this Arsenal team something they've not got. And I also think, and it's just my opinion, that at times last year in the big games, and you know we've had this discussion, that in the really big games, Martin Odegaard sometimes was a little lightweight. Not saying he's not a good player, but in the really big games, he was a little lightweight. And I think Eze can put pressure on him. Not suggesting he's getting dropped, but, you know, needs must, because Eze can play that position. So he can play any position on the front line, pretty much, and he can put pressure on Martin Odegaard. And this really, when we saw that graphic there about the players that have come in, this is the sort of no excuse time now, isn't it, for Mikel Arteta? This is a really beefy, quality. This is as good a quality Arsenal squad as they've had for years. They've been in a really good position for the last couple of years. But they have really puffed their squad out now with quality footballers. Quality guys that, as James said, can come in. If Saka's out for 3-4 months like he was last year, they need quality to come in. They've got that, and that means Mikel Arteta will have to make sure his team are delivering. Gyökeres is scoring goals, and all the other facets are firing on all cylinders. But in terms of Eze, I'm happy for the boy because he's 27. This is a huge move, and I honestly think he's more than good enough to come into this Arsenal team and, most importantly, make a difference.
James, the point that Craig made, how much of the Arsenal board saying now, right, we've given you all the toys, we've given you everything you need now to really compete properly with Liverpool, and how much will Arteta be judged at the end of the season?
Yeah, I mean, he has no excuses now. He's been given everything he wanted. I went on tour with Arsenal to Singapore and to Hong Kong, spent some time with some of the executives and just spent a lot of time around the squad. And the sense was, and this was obviously before they did Eze and while they were doing Gyökeres, the sense was we're pretty happy. We look at teams, I mean, they played Newcastle out there. Look at the mess that Newcastle are in their transfer window. They felt they'd done the majority of their business early. They were happy. They were getting Gyökeres over the line. And they felt they were in a really good place. And Mikel Arteta, who, you know, has sort of habitually, I know every manager sort of wants their players in early, but he's a particular sort of driver for that, of wanting to integrate players as soon as possible. They had this sort of pre-season, again in Spain, where they kind of get the players together and really try and sort of work on that kind of team bonding off-field stuff. And then, of course, on the tour, he had most of those new signings. Gyökeres joined it halfway through. And now he's got Eze to strengthen that left-hand side and offer, you know, increased squad depth. And so everything that he talked about last season, the end of last season, and he's talked about over the summer in terms of identifying why they didn't win the league, well, squad depth, a lack of robustness in the players, an inability to be able to rotate and still maintain that first 11 at a really elite level. Those excuses have gone now. They've got their number 9 that they've been waiting for a number of years. He's got a goal a game in Europe over the last couple of seasons. They've brought in really high quality players. You know, this is Arsenal who have spent £52 million on Noni Madueke, who is not going to get in the starting lineup. You know, you think 4 or 5 years ago, if Arsenal would have spent £52 million on a player who wasn't going to get in the team, you'd have thought it was crazy money. But now that's where they are. This is where they think they should be, going for the Premier League, going for the Champions League, and signing players to give them that depth so that they can compete on four fronts.
I saw Henry Winter earlier today, I think it was, James, talking about, on some podcast or programme, saying he thought that Eze should have gone to Spurs because he'll play every week. I mean, personally, I think he'll start in this Arsenal team,
right,
on the left-hand side. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, Gabriel Martinelli has been... They've shown a lot of faith in him. I think he's had a sort...
He's inconsistent, isn't he?
Sorry, go on. Yeah, and I think he's had a sustained dip in form for quite a long period of time, and there's only so long if you're going to talk about win now signings, and that's how they kind of pitched Gyökeres to us sort of behind the scenes. It was why they switched from him to him from Benjamin Sesko, who's obviously a bit younger, less proven. They were like, well, look, this guy's got a goal a game in Europe over the last couple of years. He's 27, he's peak, he's ready to go. And Eze feels a little bit like that now. It's like, well, can you really wait another year for Martinelli to try and rediscover his best form and kick on? I think Eze will start on that left-hand side. Maybe not. I don't know if they're going to be able to register him in time for Saturday, and then of course they've got Liverpool away, so it might be after the international break that we see him playing more consistently. But Eze is a win now signing, isn't he? He's had a fantastic season with Crystal Palace. Again, he's similar sort of age to Gyökeres, so you don't buy him to wait for a year or 2 years. You buy to get him in the team and get him improving you. And Craig's right, he does give them something different. And you know, they talked about this when they went out of the Champions League to Bayern Munich the season before last. I remember speaking to one of the executives after that game, and they said, we just missed that bit of zip, that bit of something different in the final third, and that's exactly what Eze gives them.
What's that mean for the title race, Shaq?
Well, as we sit right now, even with the addition of Eze, I still don't make Arsenal favourites over the likes of Liverpool and City.
Oh, you still think they're third in that pecking order?
I think it's going to be a very close top three. Before the signing, I didn't have Arsenal as winning it. even with the signing of Eze, I don't see them leapfrogging at the very least Liverpool. And I still think I'll say the same things about Arsenal. For Arsenal to win this title, everything has to go their way. They've got to get 25 or 30 goals from Gyökeres. Bukayo Saka's got to stay fit, which he didn't last season. You've got to get a similar return on both ends of the park from their centre-backs in Gabriel and Saliba in terms of how good they are defensively and the threat that they pose in set pieces up at the other end. All those things come together gives Arsenal every chance to win the title. But then you are asking, Liverpool didn't have many injuries to contend with last season. Will that run of luck continue for them? City, I know we're only 90 minutes into this current Premier League season, but they're showing more shades of themselves of 2 years ago. So however you look at this, it's going to be a far tighter top three than it was last season. And truly, it's you can make an argument for any of that.
I know Arsenal didn't play great at Old Trafford. They ground out that result. They were a bit sloppy. But if you've watched Liverpool Community Shield in the Bournemouth game, there's quite a few headaches there for Arne Slot to worry about. I think in terms of the new signings coming in, bedding in with the centre-halves, the two new full-backs, Florian Wirtz. So I think there are sort of issues there. And yeah, United played okay in this game, better than what we thought. Arsenal didn't play brilliantly, but got the 3 points. But I don't think it's a given that we're going to see the exact same Liverpool as last year, that in the first 6 months of the season, let's be honest about it, they were the big surprise. The first 6 months of Nottingham Forest apart, at home, they blew everybody away. Mm-hmm. But the changes they have made, and they've signed some really good players. Of course they have Frimpong, Kerkez, Florian Wirtz, Ekitike, Isak may come in. But there's two out of the back four have changed. And that's not always easy, and we've seen that already at Wembley, and we saw that against Bournemouth. So I think Arsenal are in a good position. I had them as favourites this year before Eze signed. And I think themselves and Liverpool have had a brilliant summer in terms of who they've brought in. But if I was Arsenal, I would be feeling really good about my chances. It's now their time to go out and do it. And I don't see any reason. There's no facet of the Arsenal team, unless Gyökeres doesn't score goals. And his record would suggest he will. But who knows? But there's really no facet of the team now, with all these signings, you go, they're weak. They're strong at the back. The goalie's performing well. They've got almost two players for most positions. They've got the likes of Moreno, who'll be on the bench. Mm-hmm. You got Ruben Mendes come in, Declan Rice, Odegaard, and then you've got no Kai Havertz, but you've got a number 9, and then you've got multiple players to back up the wide positions. Not one or two, you've now got multiple players if something happens. So there's no position in this Arsenal team that you can look at and say they're weak.
Meanwhile, James, give us the inside of what happened at Spurs, because the Spurs fans that I've been speaking to blame Daniel Levy.
Well, in terms of the Eze deal falling down?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, they feel as though they couldn't have done any more than they did. I think if they had their time again, maybe they would have moved a bit quicker. I mean, what we're talking about here is the deal that the two clubs have ended up striking was for 67.5 million all in. The release clause was 68. I mean, it's, at that level, it's peanuts, really. If you all along you were going to pay 67.5, you could have just paid 68 when the release clause was active and kind of got it done earlier. And that's probably where I think there will be a bit of criticism, because if we're talking about Arsenal in part reacting to Kai Havertz's injury, well, Spurs have suffered two major blows in this window already. One is James Maddison's serious injury, and the second was losing Morgan Gibbs-White. So they had more time to react to those two disappointments, and they've ended up kind of edging towards an agreement. Maybe they again have moved a little bit too slowly, and they've ended up being gazumped by Arsenal. That would be the criticism. But I suppose from Spurs' point of view, to balance it out, they found the deal difficult to do. They ended up with an agreement with the player. They thought, that they had got the player on side, that he wanted to come. And ultimately, it's not as though they've been outbid. Arsenal haven't bid any more money here. It's a case that the player's boyhood club was Arsenal, and once they came in, there wasn't anything they could do to match it.
Kulusevski's injured as well. Just to throw some more.
There you are, Spurs fans.
just to throw some more good news in there. And look.
And you got City at the weekend.
Well, maybe the player, maybe Eze, and there's nothing you can do when you're a club in this scenario. maybe the player was hedging his bets and just waiting and buying time because he thought there might have been an opportunity, and that's somewhere else at a club that's ready to rock and roll now, which Spurs are not. Arsenal are. They'll be competing in every competition, and when you're a player, that's difficult because if you're 21, 22, you can step into a project. Everybody talks about projects now. Project at Man United, project at this club, project at Chelsea with younger players, so they say. And that's fine when you're a young player, but when you're in the peak of your career, which Eze is at 27, that period between 27 and your early 30s, before Mother Nature really catches up with you and you start struggling, that 4 or 5 years is where you've got to make hay. And I think he's probably been sitting there thinking, I'm not sure, and I don't know if this is the right move for me. And then all of a sudden, he's going to a club that's going to be competing in all competitions.
Someone wrote in to ask me about why you say Mother Nature and not Father Time.
Someone has...
I just thought of that now. I just remembered that.
Somebody has got too much time on their hands.
There you go.
And who writes to you anyway?
Lots of people write to me. Lovely. I got some lovely messages from Spurs fans yesterday. Just a reminder, Transfer Talk is available over on our website. We're less than a couple of weeks away, of course, from the window closing. It was National Bacon Lovers Day yesterday. That was a big talking point on Extra Time. That's where we are in our lives. You can check that out over on YouTube. Alexander Isak. James, where's he going to be September 1st?
Well, I mean, if I had to say now, I'd say Liverpool. But the way he's gone about this, I feel for him to some extent because I think he's been very, very badly advised. I think one of the aspects that is a little bit underplayed in this actually is that my understanding of this is that he's got multiple agents involved. And I think one of them has made promises to him that the other two were not quite so keen to make. And that's essentially that, don't worry, son, we'll get you out of here. And I think the other two were kind of thinking, well, actually, this is going to be a lot more difficult. We know Newcastle's position. And also, he negotiated a 6-year deal for Isak 3 years ago, so he's got 3 years left on his contract. That's the biggest mistake of all here. If he'd not signed that 6-year deal, say he'd signed a 4 or a 5-year deal, he'd been in a much stronger position to be able to negotiate now, and Newcastle wouldn't be able to demand the fee that they are and effectively trying to price him out of the market. Reminds me a little bit of Harry Kane. Remember when 2018 he signed a 6-year deal before the 2018 World Cup, which tied him to Spurs in a way that he then couldn't get out of when he tried to leave for Manchester City a couple of years before he went to Bayern. Players of that calibre, at that level, should not be signing 6-year contracts, at least not without some sort of break clause or a release clause put in there that reflects the fact that if they do want that flexibility to be able to get out, then so be it. But I just don't think Newcastle have done anything wrong at all. They on the other hand, they committed one of their best talents to a long-term contract. They have continued to pay him. They've been very, very clear, as far as I'm aware, with their stance has been right from the get-go, you're not going anywhere, you are not for sale, we are not interested in selling you this summer. And yet he's done everything he possibly can now to try and get out because, as I say, he's been badly advised, I think. And now the onus, I think, is on Liverpool. I think if they want him, they've got to pay what Newcastle are asking, or at least get a lot closer, and not make this sort of one bid and back away, because that was clearly designed to put the sort of ball in the players' court to say, right, you now need to put pressure on the club to lower the valuation. Well, he can't really do much more than he has. He's really burnt all of his bridges at Newcastle. So the onus really now is back on Liverpool to say, right, here we are with an improved offer. Let's get this sorted. And significantly, give Newcastle enough time to then go and spend that money to find they need 2 strikers, don't they, if he goes.
I wonder if the fact that Arsenal have gone out and splashed late on and Eze maybe just make Liverpool go, do you know what?
Yeah.
We need to do this.
We need to make sure.
We need to make sure at any price that we're getting our guy, and because we're in for a hell of a fight, which they are, possibly with City and Arsenal. So I agree with what James is saying. I mean, you've just sometimes as a player you've got to think for yourselves.
Right.
I mean, there's advice and there's advice, and sometimes as a player you've got to take that responsibility. And we've all been through transfers, and some we liked and some we didn't. Some were dragged out. Some will not. And sometimes it's a hostile atmosphere, but you've got to walk back into that training ground and you should be training and you should be keeping your chin up and doing things properly. And people will tell you things. Some agents will tell you and sell you the earth. But you got to make these. You're a grown man. You're not 17. You're not 18. You got to make good, conscious, quality, professional decisions for yourself, and then just see how it tumbles out in the long run. It's difficult to see if Newcastle dig in, how he walks back into the dressing room, and more importantly, how he walks back out onto that park at St James's Park and play to the best of his ability in front of a crowd that I have no doubt completely turned on him.
Absolutely.
That is not easy for any player, even the best of players. If you walk out in front of 60,000, 70,000 and they are booing you for 90 minutes, I'm telling you now, that affects everybody, right? So it's not a good scenario around, and I think, unfortunately now, whether it's strong arm or not, I think the best thing is for Liverpool to spend the money, get the player, but again, as James said, Eddie Howe and Newcastle, they're really drinking at the last chance saloon in terms of who the hell they're going to bring in, because they lost Callum Wilson as well.
Monday, of course, sees Newcastle against Liverpool. Inevitably, there were questions about maybe more new faces to join Liverpool. Here's Arne Slot.
I've always said maybe having 2 per position is ideal, but I prefer less than more, because you have to disappoint so many players every single time for them not even being in the squad, let alone not playing. So yeah, really happy with the squad, but as always, if we think we can improve in a certain position and there's a player available that can really make us better, which you could see with Giovanni Leoni, it's then this club has always shown that they bring these players in.
Isn't he?
What's that? What?
He's got the Guardiola disease from the summer when he said, "Oh, I've got too many players." And then he was moaning he didn't have enough players when his squad wasn't big enough. I mean, Arne Slot there is sort of contradicting himself. He said, I like 2 players for every position, but I think having less is more is better.
I was just laughing in my head that if you had a middle name that was, say, Stephen, that'd be quite a top. That's where my mind was during that press conference. Wiesa to Newcastle then. Is that going to happen, James? Will that have an influence on Isak?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the irony, isn't it? You've got a striker who's desperate to get out of Newcastle and effectively going on strike, and then you've got a striker at Brentford who's going on strike to go to Newcastle. So it's sort of the irony of the whole situation is that's where we are. I think Wiesa will probably end up going to Newcastle. As we've already said, they need a striker anyway, even if Isak stays. But yeah, look, I mean, I would expect things to move after Newcastle play Liverpool. Everybody on all sides probably wants to get that fixture out of the way, and then of course they've got a week to negotiate before the window closes. So I think their plan, I know what Arne Slot was saying there, but I think their plan was always for Ekitike and Isak for the simple reason that, I mean, Isak's a fantastic footballer, don't get me wrong, but can he play 3 games in a week every week? Probably not. I mean, Newcastle have had to manage his fitness quite carefully. There have been times when he's not trained or he's missed games or he's been taken off early to sort of protect him, because he has got that kind of checkered injury history. And I think with the number of games that Liverpool are going to play this season, I suspect that the plan was obviously for Isak to be their main number 9, but then that they rotate him out for Ekitike, and he probably plays 15, maybe 20 matches himself, and he gets to develop and they get to protect Isak. So yeah, I think they want to get that Monday's game out of the way, and then I think it will move from there.
We used to get you excited to Newcastle?
Well, he's no Alexander Isak certainly at his best, but I think kind of given where Newcastle find themselves and who is maybe still available, Wiesa certainly is an upgrade on all those other names. The challenge for Newcastle is, and I think Newcastle will dig their heels in, and rightly so, in terms of the price for Alexander Isak. But now, if you're Brentford, all of a sudden you're thinking, hold on, you're getting 150 million. Now that price of Wiesa goes up, and they're right to dig their heels in as a result. So while it's post the Newcastle Liverpool game, it's only a week left in the window. It's going to be a week where everybody's jacking up their prices.
Good time for Keith Andrews to take over at Brentford, isn't it?
Yes.
Selling everything, isn't it?
Baptism of fire there.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Nico Jackson, I was going to ask you about the possibility of him moving to Newcastle, but just before we came on air, I saw rumours suggesting he could be going to Villa, James. Yeah,
so those are the 2 clubs leading the race. I think Villa are, well, I'd say Villa are slightly ahead in terms of I think the players' preference is probably to go to Villa, but there's a real issue for Villa with PSR and Chelsea value Jackson at more than £60 million, rightly or wrongly, and Villa just can't afford to pay that. So I think what they're trying to do at the moment is come up with some sort of creative payment plan, whether it's loan with an obligation or with a significant loan fee, or they can stagger the payments in a way that they can make an offer that's acceptable to Chelsea. But I think it's also significant with Chelsea to just say that Nico Jackson and Christopher Nkunku, they're both part of the first team squad. They're not in the sort of infamous bomb squad that there was last season and also exists this year. They are training with the first team. They are considered available for selection. I think if there were injuries to Delap and to João Pedro, I think Nico Jackson would probably play against West Ham, but because of the situation being as it is, he's been left out. Whereas you look at Raheem Sterling and Ben Chilwell, for example, they're not training with the first team. So they're training with the sort of loanee groups and the younger age groups, and that's where they are. They are not part of the setup at all, and they have been told you have got to go. So they kind of just leave the door open a little bit for Jackson and Nkunku, because I think they just sort of see, well, look, if we get to September, we've not had an acceptable offer, we can't ostracise these guys completely because it's going to be very difficult to reintegrate them in the same way that Craig was talking about Alexander Isak. So it's just a sort of slight distinction there that those two are still considered part of the group in a way that some of the others weren't in the past.
I think Nico Jackson worked with Unai Emery before.
Valencia.
In Spain. At Villarreal, was it not?
Villarreal.
So I think there's a little connection there, whether Unai Emery, who's very good at getting more and more out of players. And of course, Ollie Watkins is there. He didn't. I mean, he's a good player, Ollie Watkins. He had a poorer second half of the season, and obviously John Duran went to Saudi Arabia, so there wasn't really much backup there. Morgan Rogers was the sort of player coming from a deeper position. I don't think it's the greatest signing for either team, to be frank with you. I think they're better than that, particularly Villa if they want to push back into the Champions League, and of course Newcastle are in the Champions League. But I think a lot of teams are just scratching around now to actually see who's out there.
Yep.
Who's out there that's still got a relatively decent quality. And if Nico Jackson can go somewhere and play like he did in the first half of the season for Chelsea last year, then that's a decent player. But what we know is he kind of reverted back to the means in the second half. What we saw in the first 4 or 5 months of the season from him and Chelsea was really, really good. But again, it depends on the money because, as James said, Villa can't afford to spend big, and I don't think he's really worth what Chelsea are asking.
Are they going to bring anyone else in, James, Chelsea?
Well, okay, so that's a complicated one because people have sort of forgotten a little bit that they were actually sanctioned by UEFA. And what they have to do to meet the requirements is they have to make a profit on the List A players that were in last season's Conference League squad. So this is quite complicated. So it's not just about who they sell. So some players on that list, for example, João Felix being one such example, he wasn't in that squad last year. So his sale, that 43.7 million you see there, that doesn't count towards the UEFA accounting. So we could talk about this at length and it could get very complicated, but basically Chelsea have to balance their books in a very specific way related to their squad costs. Once they do that, I think they will try to go for Xavi Simons and Alejandro Garnacho. I think those are the two that they're still trying to do, but they can't really move on those two until they've got 3 or 4 out of the door who were in that squad last season, because my understanding is there's still a reasonably big deficit there that they need to recoup through player sales, but related to that list who was in into the Conference League squad last season, not just the squad as a whole.
They're just called Saudi Arabia, weren't they, James? Normal come the end of the transfer window?
Well, or they could, call their parent club up and inflate some fees that way, I suppose. That's the allegation that a lot of the other rivals would make. But they are creative with their accounts, Chelsea. But no, look, I mean, seriously though, they have got some prized assets, if you like. They've got players in that list who who would generate sales and get them into that positive balance on that List A group. So they can get there, but again, I think this final fortnight is going to be, or final 10 days is going to be extremely busy for a lot of clubs, and there'll be a lot of scrambling, and Chelsea will be right in there trying to sell, and then I think they'll try and do one or both of those deals very late in the window.
And on the playing front, James, what do you think goals have been set for Enzo Maresca this year? What's going to see the Chelsea board think, well, that was a relatively successful season? Because I know they've got a lot of young players, but they have spent a lot of money.
And they're the world champions, Craig.
In the last 3 years. So what do you think? What do you think the goals are for the ownership to be happy at the end of the season?
Champions League qualification this year, win the league next year.
There you go.
I think it's fairly clear. I think they'll expect a run at it this year. I mean, they had a sort of a run at it last year, didn't they? And they kind of fell away in the second half of the season, although I don't think anybody really took them seriously last season. I think if they can sustain that a little bit longer this season, safely stay in the top four, I think the style of football is still a little bit of an issue for Maresca. I think we can forget that at the back end of last season, some of the fans were still quite critical of the team and the way that they were playing, particularly at Stamford Bridge. He's bought himself obviously a lot more time with the end of the season and winning the Club World Cup. So I think that's a factor. But yeah, he's got to get Champions League qualification again and then put that team in a position to really go for it next year.
They're, of course, in search of their first win of the season. West Ham, of course, in the same position as the two face-off tomorrow.
Yeah, and West Ham started the season so desperately poorly. I was expecting a lot more, kind of given it's Graham Potter's first full pre-season with the squad. But I couldn't think of a more disastrous start than away to Sunderland than what we saw. And now there has to be a response.
But I'm just surprised that the style of the football isn't much better than when David Moyes was there. And two, they look just much more open than they did, and he's not been able to have the impact on this West Ham squad thus far that I thought he was going to. I thought he was going to go in there and the whole sort of thing was going to change and it was going to be a bit of a revolution, but it's not been like that. And the one thing you can go back to with David Moyes is say, well, yeah, we can talk about the style of play and modern day football, but they were successful in their own little bubble. They had that European success. They were very difficult to play against. They were very difficult to beat. And sometimes you've got to choose your horse. And at the moment, I think West Ham are struggling to define what they are. At least with David Moyes, they knew what they were, and they were pretty damn good at it. With Graham Potter at the moment, I have no idea what kind of team they are. A team that tries to play out and outplay teams, or a team that wants to sit back. I've got no idea. And it's a big problem for him. He has to be one of the favourites to go early. Yeah. I'm not...
After that start, yes.
Yeah. James, what are you expecting?
Well, as Craig says, I mean, I have to say, in my pre-season predictions, he was the manager I thought would go first, because I just... what would really worry me, I think, if I was a West Ham fan, was the second half against Sunderland, because once they conceded that first goal, they just folded. And the fight wasn't there, and the spaces were alarming, really. And you're thinking a newly promoted team away from home, first game of the season, you've really got to be making your mark there, and they were miles off it. And West Ham have been in this sort of existential conundrum for a while, haven't they? That when they've had the most success under the manager, that they least the team embodies. So, David Moyes is more a conservative, pragmatic manager. They want the West Ham way. They want to play entertaining, swashbuckling football. And every time they think they've got a manager who can do it, the idea doesn't translate. It seems to get lost. The squad either doesn't understand it, can't play it. They don't sign the right players for that style of football, and they get muddled. And then they think, oh, actually, are we in risk of going down here? Maybe we do need to revert to being a bit more pragmatic. And they get kind of caught in this cycle, don't they? And I don't think Graham Potter's going to be able to get them out of it. They're just not enough signs for me, unless they're very positive and proactive. Again, in the last sort of 10 days of the window, Kudus was obviously a huge loss to them. He's looked particularly good, I think, for Spurs right at the start of Tottenham's season. They need to replace him. They need more pace, more energy, more dynamism in the team. I am concerned for them, I have to say.
Good man, James. Thank you very much. James, of course, will be with us throughout the season to give us all the latest on the big London clubs, and for a lot more, looking ahead to Chelsea against West Ham and reflecting on what happened this week across Europe. Be sure to check out the latest edition of the Gab and Jules podcast. ESPN FC is presented by Xfinity. The Wi-Fi is booming. The Bundesliga kicks off tomorrow. No surprise, Bayern Munich are the favourites to defend their titles, of course. Some new faces, including Luis Diaz. We spoke yesterday about his settling in. There he is, a bit of lederhosen, a bit of beer as well ahead of the start of the season. They've already started, though, with a win in the Super Cup, and he spoke to Gemma Soler about that and looking ahead to the new campaign.
Ha hecho una apuesta muy grande por ti el Bayern. Imagino que es bonito, ¿no? Poder ya responder y vivir ese primer contacto de alegría con la hinchada, tu nueva hinchada.
Sí, sí, total. Muy feliz porque, bueno, así como tú lo dices, fue una apuesta muy grande y la verdad que estoy muy agradecido por las directivas llegar hacia mí, tener un buen proyecto, confiar en mí, que no es nada fácil, así que bueno, a mí me toca siempre responder en el campo, comenzar de esta manera, estar ahí junto a mis compañeros, celebrando junto a la afición, es increíble, así que nada, muy merecido.
Bayern then start their campaign tomorrow. At home against Leipzig in a game you can see live on ESPN, plus some familiar faces. Join us to look ahead to that tie.
Thanks, Dan. The Bundesliga is back. Bayern against RB Leipzig, and Bayern, unsurprisingly, are the hot favourites for the Bundesliga title once again. Thomas Hitzelsberger, Jan Åge Fjørtoft. The thing is, there's stormy weather in Munich, not just here today in Marienplatz, but also at Bayern Munich right now because of the lack of signings. They've lost Kingsley Coman, Leroy Sané, Thomas Müller, Jamal Musiala out injured until the end of the year, Jan, and yet only Luis Diaz has come in. I know 17-year-old Lennart Karl is meant to be good, but I don't think he can quite cover this, so what's going on?
So this is a mandate for Max Eberl, the head of sport. They tell him, we're going to win the Champions League, so we need a team for that. We need star to excite the crowd. But then again, we have to save money. You have to get young players in, less salary and a reduced squad. So it's a tough job for Max Eberl. But you're right, they're the big favourite to win the Bundesliga, but that's not the standard of this team. And if you see the other teams in the world, and I'm saying in the world and in the different leagues, how they invest, which players they got, it seems that Bayern have a trouble to find their niche. Where are we getting the players to German Bundesliga? The German clubs have found a niche selling them to English football, but Bayern are struggling at the moment, and we haven't even started.
Thomas, I'm sensing an air of concern from Vincent Kompany when he said last week that they've got the quality but not the depth. And when even Harry Kane is telling us that this is the thinnest squad he's ever played in, these are noises that you're not used to hearing from these people at Bayern, which tells me maybe there's something up.
Well, there is a little bit. I wouldn't be too concerned right now. Let's face it, Bayern Munich, they still have the best squad in the Bundesliga. So for the first half of the season, I wouldn't be too concerned. But of course, if they want to win the Champions League, they need more quality, more depth in particular. And now Bayern facing that problem amongst other big teams, they are not on the front foot. They can't spend 200-300 million like some other teams, and yet they want to compete with the best teams in the world. So this is the issue. There is so much noise around the club, and there has been for too long. I'm a little bit concerned for them winning more trophies, because that's what the club is used to. And right now, too many people, important people, are concerned, and that is Harry Kane, Vincent Kompany, and Uli Hoeneß.
When it comes to RB Leipzig, Jan, lots of changes this summer. New coach in Ole Werner, new captain in David Raum stepping up for Willi Orban, who stays at the club, and some old faces having to take a back seat, the likes of Amadou Haidara, Kevin Campbell, for example. More new faces through the door. Only one of those played at the weekend in the Cup against Sandhausen, Jan Diamond. What does this all add up to for you?
Well, it's add up to that Leipzig in this transfer window have looked for the Leipzig, the RB, the Red Bull DNA. So they spent over 100 million euros, and you have to make sure that you're well prepared for this season because they're not so very well known. But Leipzig are also saying this is the biggest transition they've had in the history of their club, meaning that they're starting all over again, starting with Jürgen Klopp being in there. They get Ole Werner, who was kind of well known in Werder Bremen, to play with young players, to get young players in, to play an attacking way of football. So it's a very important season for RB Leipzig as well. Where are they going to be? Like last season, or are they going to chase for the Champions League again?
Thomas, tomorrow night, Bayern and Leipzig. Pick a player from either side who piques your interest.
I'd start with David Raum. As a captain, I think he's so crucial to this team. He's got to deliver now. I think he's ready for this role, so I watch out for him. On the other side, I would still expect Bayern to go forward, to attack, to impress people, and Michael Olise is the player I love watching the most.
Jan, quickly, your
I will
picks.
go Anthony Nusa. Norwegian, but a 20-year-old Norwegian. He's going to be very important for Leipzig and going to be very important for Norway when we, for the first time, like for 100 years, going to qualify for the World Cup.
And from Bayern?
From Bayern, I'm interested to see the Kane-Diaz combination. They started well in the Super Cup, and I'm interested to see how they will combine in the game. And as you're saying, they will do well going forward, Bayern.
Lots to look out for tomorrow night at the Allianz Arena. Jan Fjortov, Thomas Hitzelsberger, thank you very much. The Bundesliga is back, Dan, and we're looking forward to it. Back to you in the studio.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, guys. Just a reminder then, Bayern against Leipzig, Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern on ESPN 2 and ESPN Plus. And to keep up to date with all the latest German news, be sure to check out our YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe to ESPN FC. Welcome in then to the latest edition of Extra Time. Just Craig and Shaka here today.
Yeah.
Let's get straight on to it. For both, do you guys agree with Frank's comments that as a pro player, you guys owe nothing to the fans? Fans don't pay players, but they make the game what it is, though, right?
When did Frank say that?
So Frank said yesterday that you don't owe fans explanations. Do you remember we were talking about Santos and Neymar speaking to the fans? And Frank was like, I would never speak to the fans. I don't owe them any explanation. They do not pay my wages.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah.
That was yesterday?
Yeah, it was yesterday, Shaq.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll take your word for it, Dan.
Right.
Why don't you come over here to the man of the people?
Yeah, ask Craig. Ask Craig.
Craig.
So you were on the show yesterday.
Yeah.
I'll give you. Yeah, give you.
Yep.
I wouldn't say the fans are nothing.
Right.
Obviously, the fans are very important, but I would never feel the need to explain myself.
They kind of contribute to your wages, don't they, in a part, by paying tickets and...
Well, that would have been true many moons ago. Unfortunately, it doesn't really make a big impact now. It's all coming from the commercial side of it. Yeah, I mean, if anything, I think the fans are getting fleeced by it. The exorbitant prices that they're having to pay, particularly in the Premier League, for these tickets. But yeah, I don't think Frank was being... I don't think he was being... It's probably how it translated. But no, I never felt that I had to apologise or explain myself to any supporter.
Oh, I think you're defending Frank quite well, actually. He was quite definitive.
I'm very much in this...
He was quite definitive about it.
I'm very
Shaq,
much...
I know you've had time to think about what's going on in life.
Yeah?
Would you like to add anything?
I've never felt the need to explain anything.
Right. To anyone. You're your own man, Shaq.
That's how I live my life, Dan.
Yes. Yeah, right.
You're in that...
Hello, Desha. Shaka says.
It's very lonely in that I-84, isn't it?
Rank these from... Right, Craig, focus. Rank these from most to least likely for the season. Spurs to finish in the top 4, Chelsea finishing in the top 2 of the Premier League, and Arsenal winning the Champions League. Which of those 3 is the least likely and which is the most likely?
Least likely for me, Chelsea finishing top 2.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, my voice has changed, hasn't it?
Oh, he's jumped in now.
All right, jump in. He never does that. Sam, take your temperature. You never speak on this show. Very rarely.
Okay.
Even when asked.
Right.
You were not asked.
So we got Chelsea. What about you?
He hasn't finished. What? Finish it.
No, I've started. You can interject.
No.
What's the least likely for you?
Who was your least likely?
My least likely is Chelsea finishing top 2.
My least likely is Tottenham finishing the top 4.
Okay. And what's your most likely?
Arsenal winning the Champions League, because I don't see Chelsea finishing the top 2.
I agree. I concur.
Right, this is a bit mean. This tweet. There we go. For Craig.
Is it personal?
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
Is there a dress code at Fieldside? Because when you were at Wembley with Nathan and Frank last weekend, they were wearing nice shirts while you looked like you just rolled out of bed in an undershirt.
Well, I didn't. I had a white T-shirt on, and I had a jacket with me.
Okay.
But it was very hot.
Right.
And they weren't wearing jackets, and they also weren't sitting.
This is he's got a point.
Yeah, but I had a jacket. I was going to wear a jacket.
Right. Well, maybe you should have put the jacket on.
And also, they weren't sit cramped in a commentary booth. Right. I was doing the commentary.
Right.
So it was about comfort dressing.
Okay. Comfort dressing. We maybe shouldn't have gone on camera.
I'm okay with that.
Nedum's wearing a T-shirt. Nedum's wearing a T-shirt.
Yeah, but Nedum looks a bit smarter than.
Yeah, but he was doing the whole show.
Why is that?
He was doing the whole show.
Well, there we go.
That T-shirt was meant to have a jacket over it.
Yes, you keep saying jacket over and over
85
again.
degrees, and I looked the right muppet with a jacket on.
Now there's suggestions that it would.
Who is this?
Andrea. Andrea isn't impressed.
Who is this connoisseur of fashion?
Well, Andrea's decided that.
Bet they're right, ragamuffin. Whatever Andrea's.
Did you see the footage of Mascherano last night after he was shown red? We just shown it, didn't he? Obviously, he was in the crowd on his phone. He was clearly communicating with his assistant via cell phone. Why are managers allowed to sit in the stands and give directions? Should managers be forced to stay in the dressing room?
Yeah, they should be separated. Isn't that the in European games you can't sit in the stand? Isn't there some one of those competitions? I'm sure they've stopped that.
Well, no, we've seen coaches sit in the stands a lot last season that were suspended.
Really?
Yeah, of course.
In the wicker basket.
Yeah, you could do the Mourinho wicker basket.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
There you are. No, I'm not lying.
I'm still just going to take your word for it, Dan.
Start bench drop. Which coach is most likely to depart their current club first? Guardiola, Arteta, Simeone.
Oh. I'm going. Well, Guardiola.
I think Pep probably.
If it turns like it did last year, I think he will walk because he'll just say, I can't get a tune out of him anymore. Now, match day one would suggest that's not going to be the case. I could see, for the first time, I could see if and we watched Atleti at the weekend, decent in the first half, terrible in the second, lost the match. Where was the match again?
Espanyol, you keep forgetting.
That was a long time ago, Craig. I understand.
It was like a lot of Atleti games. It's very forgetful.
Right.
He's had this love-in with the fans, could do no wrong. You just feel now with the money they've spent again, that if they're miles off this year, it could turn for him.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think
He's
so.
bulletproof?
I think
still.
I think he's still bulletproof.
So you think it's Arteta?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'll buckle.
This is an interesting question to put in. Which Italian teams are you guys fans of? Did you support an Italian team when you were young? No. Craig?
Well, AC Milan back in the day.
Yes.
But you couldn't help but be a fan of them.
No.
That's it.
Well,
there we go. That is an Italian team, so there we go.
Okay, I'm not a fan anymore. It's not like I'm married to them, are I? After all those players leave, I'm like, all right, never mind.
I've never been a fan of any team.
No.
It doesn't matter where it is. None. Zero. Zilch.
In the teams he's playing for, in the teams he was in.
I'm
Like,
not a fan of any team.
we're crap.
Who has the best balance of midfield and defence between Liverpool, Manchester City and Arsenal?
Midfield and defence?
The best balance.
Arsenal,
Because?
because
they have the best balance.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say Arsenal have got the strongest unit from midfield to back. Maybe not necessarily the most talented. I don't know. It's like pretty close. Not City.
Start bench or drop. Coaches that need media training, Shaka. Amorim, Maresca, Arteta.
That need media training.
Yeah. You'd say Maresca a bit, didn't he?
What's this media training crap?
Oh dear.
Is that
What do you
what
mean?
nonsense that players need media training? We never had media training when we're playing. You've got to have a brain in your head.
And that's why you're using naughty words.
I don't care.
Well, that's it. If you had media training, you wouldn't be...
No, I wouldn't.
With your potty mouth.
Remember with the guy here years ago? Remember?
Yes, I do remember when the
I
guy came
almost
to give us media
self-congratulated.
training. You didn't attend
No.
that. No. No.
I mean, there's people that do media training and want to tell you. Let me have a little rant here, right? They want to tell you how to sit up. Sit straight like that. Look at the camera. Do all that. We sit. Talk like that. What a load of old guff.
Sitting up.
What's more important, your posture or what you're saying,
Right.
how you're analysing, how you're coming.
Did someone have a go at your posture once? I feel this is personal.
No, but I've heard about people talking about posture, and I'm saying, you're telling him or her to improve their posture. Have you listened to them, what they're saying on the show? That's a bigger problem. So media training, get out of here.
Okay, let's twist it then. Who says the most nonsense out of these three?
Hey, media training.
I was trying to get out of the picture. Who says the most nonsense?
Well, it's translation for some of them.
FU wasn't translation.
No, but I mean, sometimes you got to give them a bit of slack for being foreign managers talking in English.
Okay.
I mean, there's a little bit of slack there.
Okay, so everyone gets a pass.
It's past day.
Right?
Apart from if you're a media trainer.
Yeah.
A talent trainer, media guy, stealing money, basically.
For Craig, could Mbappe dominate La Liga the way Messi and Ronaldo once did?
Could who?
Mbappe.
Mbappe, French guy.
Nobody will ever dominate, I don't think, again, like those two did, parallel to each other for a decade. Numbers were astronomical, 40, 50 goals, Champions League, you name it, they were delivering it. And performance, which Mbappe had the numbers last year. I don't care what he did at Paris Saint-Germain. The numbers in La Liga were pretty good, but as we've discussed, performance was not the best. The other two, I don't think we'll see. I don't think we're likely to ever see that again. Certainly not from two players at the one time.
That's it then. That brings us to the end of today's show. Your reminder: Bundesliga kicks off tomorrow. We'll be reflecting on
I need to go. You know,
against
got media training at
Leipzig
6.
and Chelsea West Ham as well.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
I got an hour's media training.
Yeah, exactly.
How to set up.
Yeah, stop swearing.